Hi and welcome everybody to this midweek review with Mr. John. I am Mr. John and we have been talking about Moses and the Israelites and their trek to the promised land. Well, guess what? They get there. They are on the other side of the Jordan and they can see the promised land. They are right there. So they're a little apprehensive about just going over. So what they decide to do is they decide to take one person from each of the 12 tribes of Israel, right? If we remember Joseph, all his brothers, each one of them were named after a tribe after one of the brothers, if that makes sense. So they had the tribe of Dan, the tribe of Reuben. So one person from each of those tribes is told they're going to go over and they get to be like James Bond, 007. They get to go over and they get to spy on the land. So these 12 guys, they cross the Jordan River and they go into Canaan, the promised land. And they go out and they're looking. And what do they see? They see a land of abundance. This is truly the land that God has promised. This is the land of milk and honey. They see grapes that are enormous, bunches of grapes that are just huge, pomegranates that are massive. The food supply is going to be great. But they see something else. And for 40 days, they walk around and they go all about Canaan and they observe and see what's going on. When they come back, they tell everybody what they have seen. And they talk about the giant fruit. But remember, there was something else they saw. They saw fortified towns and cities, right? They saw great cities with walls, giant walls. But not only that, they saw people who were very big. They saw, remember, when we talk about some of the tribes in the promised land, remember the Philistines? We will come to hear later on down the road and David fighting this 9-foot giant, right? The Philistines live in the promised land. So they may have seen some of these people. They actually say these people are so big, we look like grasshoppers compared to them. So if you can imagine you standing next to a grasshopper, that's a pretty big dude, right? So they are sitting there and they're kind of asked their opinion. What do you guys think? Should we just go ahead and go on over and start to live our lives in the promised land? And 10 of the spies immediately go, there is no way we can go over there. We will not survive. They will crush us under their feet. We can't do it. We just can't survive over there. But there was a man named Caleb and a man named Joshua that were sent over as part of the spies. And they were saying, listen, we have been on this track getting to the promised land, and God has supplied us with everything. Do you not think that God will supply us when we get over there? We need to be trusting in who God is and what he has done for us, and God will definitely supply us when we go over there, and he will protect us. Well, when you have 10 people over here saying one thing and 2 that are kind of sitting there, who do you think the Israelite crowd, the people around them, start to listen to? It wasn't Caleb and Joshua who said follow God. It was the 10 guys who were adamant that they could not do it. And all of a sudden, all the people of Israel, they become frightened, scared, and they're even saying the same mantra we've heard over and over again. Moses, what have you done? You brought us into this land. Yes, it may be filled with food, the grape, I see the bunches of grapes. They brought some back and they are enormous. The pomegranates are big. But the people are too, and they will squash us, and we were better off in Egypt. They actually say this to Moses after all that God has done for him. And let me tell you, this does not make God happy. He tells Moses, listen, why are the people not absolutely putting their faith in me? Why are they not trusting me? This is not how you follow God. You put your faith in God, and here's what we're going to do. We're going to not allow any of these people who are revolting, who are screaming and yelling, they will not be able to enter the promised land. Now, I'm going to still let my people enter the promised land, but it'll be generations from now because these people I am not going to allow to enter. And what God does is he has Moses and his people walking through the desert for another 40 years. And guys, I kind of see some similarities in today, right? In how we can kind of get really intimidated by certain things, right? We sit there and we are told we're going to have a test, right? And we may study for it and we may understand math or science or whatever the test is. And everybody around you is saying, man, I don't know, this test is going to be so hard. I just don't know if I'm going to pass. As a matter of fact, I don't think I'm going to pass. And you start to hear this and you went from this positive attitude. Yeah, I kind of know my math. I know my science. And now you're hearing that this test is going to be so hard that you aren't going to pass it yourself. And you start to get doubts and you start to just kind of think, oh, there's no way I'm going to get through this now. And you kind of stop believing in yourself. Or even if it's something else that you had true faith in, you stop believing in that. Like the Israelites did with God, right? They stopped believing and trusting that God would see them through, getting them into the promised land. And so we go into this test and we have psyched ourselves out so bad. And then you take the test and one of two things happen. You start to take it and you realize, oh, this test isn't so bad. I studied and I understand what's going on. Or you've psyched yourself out so bad that you just kind of get in there and you see the first question and all of a sudden there is a panic. And that's what the Israelites did, right? They panicked and go, we can't do it. And doesn't that just kind of make you a little upset? Wouldn't that make like your parents upset? That's why God and Moses got so upset. Listen, you have to have faith. You have to have trust. If you've studied for this test, you should not be too worried about it. Now, I get there are some of us that don't test well, and there's some of us that may not really understand math, and that's totally a different thing, right? We still go into the test and we try our best, but when you psych yourself out, you're never going to compete in that. And I see it in sports too. I'm a big sports guy. I've told you that before. And you come up to a team that is bigger than you, and all of a sudden you have psyched yourself out. Now, your team has really worked on running certain plays and doing certain things right and doing the right things, and maybe the other team hasn't. And your team is actually better than the guys that are bigger than you. But when you go in and immediately psych yourself out, guys, it's hard to win when you've already come in and said, no, I can't do it. And the Israelites are telling Moses and God that they can't do it. And God and Moses are saying, listen, God's saying, I can do it. Trust me. And because of your lack of trust, 40 more years, you get to wander the desert. So guys, have faith. Have trust that what you have done and what you've learned, you can apply it and you can do it. And if you don't win in a game, or even if you fail a test, it's not the end of the world. But no, put that trust in yourself to accomplish your goals and get better. Just keep advancing, keep getting better. So guys, new verse. I hope you have been studying these verses and getting them down. We'll talk to you next time. We're going to be talking about some Joshua. Bye. Let us hold unswervingly to the hope we profess, for he who promised is faithful. Hebrews 10:23.